Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Paola Gutierrez, and I am a financial aid specialist at the Mount SAC Financial Aid Office. Hopefully, you've already watched the Financial Aid 101 video and you're ready to apply for financial aid. This video is going to give you more information on what you're applying for and how to apply for these sources. So let's get started. Today, we're going to focus on financial aid, the types of financial aid that are available, how to apply for these sources, what happens after the application, and the summer support availability that you all have. Throughout the presentation, we'll also have some FA myths that we want to clarify for you all so that you have all the facts as you go through this process. So, what is financial aid? As you've already heard, financial aid in its simplest terms is money that is available to help you pay for college. That money can come from different sources, can come from the federal government, the state, institutional, meaning from the school, and private sources. The combination of these sources can make up your financial aid package. So, what types of aid are available under these sources? Well, we break them down into three categories. We have free money, that is the gift aid that is available in the form of scholarships and grants. We have the earned money, which is employment, that is federal work study. And lastly, we have borrowed money. This is the type of funding that requires repayment. Remember, if these are federal student loans, both could be subsidized and unsubsidized loans. The subsidized loans are the loans that do not accumulate any interest while you're in school, and the unsubsidized loans are the ones that accumulate interest right away. Let's break down the grants so you know about the different types of grants that you may be eligible for. There is a federal Pell Grant. This award is an entitlement. That means that if you submit your financial aid application, FAFSA in this case, and you're eligible, meaning you have enough need for this award, you can be awarded up to $6,895. But the amount does reduce based on your need, which is calculated from your expected family contribution and the number of units that you're enrolled in. If you're a student that is determined to be high need, then you would be eligible for the Federal Supplemental Opportunity Grants. This award could be up to $200 and can vary in the amount from school to school. There's also the Cal Grant. Most students at community college could be eligible for the Cal Grant B, which is a stipend. That is money that goes to the student to assist with books, supplies, and other educational expenses. The amount you see here is up to, but the Cal Grant B stipend is about $824 per semester. There's also the Student Success Completion Grant. For those of you that are going to be full-time students, that means 12 units or more, and are eligible for Cal Grant, you could also be receiving a Student Success Completion Grant to help you fund your education and make sure that you can be a full-time student. And lastly, those of you at community college here at Mount SAC could also qualify for the California College Promise Grant, which waives course enrollment fees. That means that you wouldn't be paying anything out of pocket for tuition and some of the mandatory fees. There's also scholarships. So scholarships is also free money. And if you're here at Mount SAC, you're in good hands. Our scholarship program has over $400,000 in scholarship funding. Students in average can receive anywhere between $500 to $1,000. So it is highly encouraged that you submit your scholarship application, which is available in the spring semester to students that are enrolled on at least one unit at Mount SAC. We also have the Associated Students Book Scholarships. This is up to $250, and it's a book voucher to help you purchase books on campus. No essay required, but there are limited funds. So at the beginning of the semester, you should go to the Mount SAC Scholarship website and submit your application or visit us in person at the Mount SAC Financial Aid Office. We also encourage students that are going to be transferring to look out for the Jack Kent Cooke transfer Scholarship. This is a great scholarship that can award you up to $40,000 per year, and it is awarded to students that demonstrate academic achievement and financial need. We have had a few students at Mount SAC receive this scholarship, and we will help you submit your application so you can also be considered for this great scholarship. Lastly, we encourage you to look for outside scholarships as well. This is an ongoing research. We have websites listed on the screen for you to check out, like FAFSA, College Board, and Unigo. Definitely check those out, create your account, and start your research on scholarships now. It's never too early or too late. Let's talk about federal work study. So if you're interested in the earned money portion of a financial aid package and you are eligible for federal work study, you can search for on-campus student employment. This is available to students that submit a FAFSA. It is need-based. That means that you have to demonstrate that you have need based on the results from your FAFSA. And this is earned, so it's not given to you up front. You would earn it through a paycheck just like you would for any job. You get those funds and then you can use those for any of your educational expenses, whether that is transportation, that is your meals, or your room and board, whatever it is that you need to continue to be a student. There are other on-campus jobs available that are not work study. So if you are looking for a job, then we highly encourage you to connect with the Career Center on campus to help you locate those job opportunities. Lastly, let's talk about federal loans. So subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Remember, I said earlier, subsidized loan is a loan that does not accumulate any interest while you're in school, and the unsubsidized loan is a loan that accumulates interest right away. Repayment is required. You don't need to make any payments while you're in school, but you will have to start making payments after you graduate 6 months later, or if at any point your enrollment falls below halftime, that is less than 6 units, whichever comes first. Submitting a financial aid application does not force you to take these loans out. They are there as an option if you need them and want them. Financial aid myth number one takes that this is coming from those student loans, something we hear from students all the time. The financial aid application is only for student loans. I will be forced to accept loans if I fill out the financial aid application. So what do you think that is? That's actually false. The financial aid application is used to determine all sources of aid. And students are never forced to take loans. They are there as an option. We at Mount SAC don't offer them upfront. That means that you won't see them as part of your financial aid package. But if you filled out a FAFSA and you're interested, then you can contact our office so we can talk about student loans and then how to submit your application for those loans. Okay, so how do you apply for all those sources of funding? There are two applications available. There is the FAFSA, which is the pre-application for federal student aid, and the California DREAM Act, also known as CADA. These applications do have a priority deadline of March 2nd, okay? So make sure you keep an eye out and you submit your application early. The earlier, the better. But if you happen to miss that deadline, don't worry, you can still submit your application. Before you submit your application, it is important that you gather all the documents needed. You want to complete your application in one sitting, and the best way to do that is to make sure that you have your documents ready to go from the get-go versus having to go back and forth. That's another way students could easily make mistakes. If they have to keep going back to the application, then they might have forgotten what they inputted the last time. And if you're not taking your time, you could easily make a mistake that could impact your financial aid offer. So this is a good screen to take a picture of to make sure that you have these documents gathered. Now, if some of the documents listed on here aren't something that you have, for example, if you don't have a permanent resident card, then don't worry about it. You don't need it. If you, for example, don't have bank statements or are not a tax filer and are not required to file taxes, then you can still complete your application without these. Okay, Let's talk about FAFSA and who's eligible to complete a FAFSA. You're eligible to complete a FAFSA if you are a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen. That means you're either a permanent resident, a refugee or asylee, a T visa holder, and there's other examples on FAFSA that we encourage you to look for if you think you qualify for FAFSA. The application is completed online on FAFSA.gov. And remember that in order for us to get a copy of your application, you have to add our school code. So we've added that on the screen for you. If you haven't already added us on there, make sure that you go back and add Mount SAC, because that's the only way for us to know that you are interested in receiving financial aid with us. All right, so let's talk about this Federal Student Aid ID. That's also the FSA ID. So what is an FSA ID? It's a username with a password, and this authenticates your identity. It is also your way to sign your application electronically. You set up your account, and if you ever forget your password, you can easily retrieve it by making sure that you remember your security questions and the information you added when you initially created the account. Okay, it's important that you keep this in a safe place and you don't share it with anyone else. If your parent has a social security number, they can also create a username and password, another FSA ID for themselves, so that they can easily sign your application. Now, if your parent does not have a social security number, they don't have to have an FSA ID for you to apply. They can sign and submit a signature page that will be available once you complete the application as an option for submitting your application. That signature page is signed and then mailed out to FAFSA for processing. If you're having trouble submitting that signature page, contact your office. We'd be happy to help you get that page submitted. All right, so let's talk about the FAFSA application and what that looks like and how to submit that application. You're going to start the application by going on to FAFSA.gov and signing in with your FSA ID. So you should have your FSA ID before you try to complete the application. That's the only way you'll be able to access the application. Once you're logged in, you'll have to choose which application you'd like to complete. If you're going to be here this summer, you should be completing the 2022-2023 FAFSA form, which is available to students that will be attending school starting fall 2022 through summer 2023. Now, if you're going to continue school in the fall of 23, all the way through next summer of 24, then you should be completing the 2023-2024 financial aid application as well. You want to create a save key. A save key is different than an FSA ID. You can share the save key with your parents so that they can access the application when needed. Lastly, you want to then move on to the student demographics section. The student demographics section includes your name, date of birth, and other personal information. If you enter the application with your FSA ID, then you'll notice that some of that information will automatically be on there. You still want to double check in case of a typo or error. Make sure that all your information is on there. You can use the QR code on the screen to access a more detailed step-by-step and screenshots for how to complete the application. Okay, let's move on to step number 5. You will also be listing the schools that you want your FAFSA to be sent to. You can add up to 10 schools, and for every school that you're considering, you will have to identify your housing plan. So you'll have to let FAFSA know. For example, if you're listing UCLA, if you're going to be living at home, if you're going to be commuting, you're going to be living on campus or off campus. Okay. Step number 6, you'll be answering the dependency status questions. In the dependency status questions, you'll need to respond to a series of specific questions to find out whether you're a dependent or independent student. Dependent students will require parent information. Independent students will not require parent information. The answers to the questions in the dependency status section will determine whether you need to provide parent information on the FAFSA form or not. Fill out the parent demographic sections if parent information is required. Your parents will need to provide basic demographic information. Remember, it doesn't matter if you don't live with your parents. You still must report information about them if you're a dependent student. And the last thing you'll want to do is you'll want to sign and submit your FAFSA form. The application is not complete until it is fully signed and submitted. You're not finished and you want to make sure that you get that confirmation at the end to ensure that it is fully submitted. All right, let's talk about the DREAM Act. You're eligible to complete a DREAM application, also known as CADA, if you are undocumented, have a valid or expired DACA, you're a U visa holder, have a temporary protected status, also known as TPS, and you're a California resident who meets the eligibility requirements for the non-resident exemption. That means that you have a certain amount of academic years in the state of California. This application is also completed online on dream.csac.ca.gov. Our school code is also listed on here because remember, we won't get a copy of your application unless you add our school code. All right, let's talk about the steps to complete the DREAM application. So for CADA, you start the application on dream.csac.ca.gov by signing in with your user ID. If you are a student and it's your first time accessing the application, you should select first time user, otherwise select returning user. Choose which CADA you'd like to complete. You can complete the 22-23 DREAM app if you're going to be here this summer, and the 23-24 DREAM app if you're going to continue your enrollment from fall 2023 through next summer 2024. Fill out the student demographics section. The student demographics section includes your name, date of birth, and other personal information. School selection. Just like FAFSA, you will be adding up to 10 schools if you're interested in 10. If you're interested in less, you can add less. If you're interested in more, you can add 10, submit, and then go back and add more schools. Again, there's a QR code on the screen that you can use to have a more detailed list on the steps to complete your application. Step number 5 involves dependency status, a list of questions that will determine whether you are considered dependent or independent on the CADA. Dependent students will be required to provide parental information, and it can be 1 or 2 parents depending on their marital status, similar to FAFSA. Okay. Parent demographics. If your parents are legally separated or divorced, then you're listing the parent you lived with the most during the last 12 months. If your parents are legally separated or divorced and you live with them equally, list the parent who provided the most financial support in the last 12 months. If your divorced parent is remarried, list both your parent and step parent. If your parents are unmarried but living together, list information for both parents. If your parent is undocumented, use all zeros as their social security number. That's the same thing for FAFSA. For the financial information, you're going to enter the information for the specific tax year. If they're tax filers, if they're not tax filers, and they're not required to file taxes, then you would answer accordingly. You'll want to make sure that you sign and submit. And if you're dependent, your parent is going to go back to that homepage and sign your DREAM application using their PIN number. So what happens after you apply? After you apply, Mount SAC will receive the application within 5 to 7 business days. You will be able to view your student aid report on either your DREAM or FAFSA website. You'll want to make sure that you're logging into your Mount SAC student portal consistently and look for any additional financial aid requirements. That means we may need more information from you that you need to submit as soon as possible in order for us to finalize your offer. Once your final offer is available, you'll be able to access this on your portal. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns on any of this, remember to contact our office. So we have another myth here. Since I'm self-supporting, I don't have to include my parents on the financial aid application. And as you see on the screen, that is false. Requirements for being considered an independent student go beyond living on your own and supporting yourself. just like we've talked about, there are dependency questions asked on each of these applications that will help you determine whether you are considered dependent or independent. Now, if you don't believe the assessment is accurate, you can always contact our office for additional options. Let's talk about the summer support that is available. So this summer, we have a partnership with our STEP program. We have recorded workshops on how to apply and what happens next. We also have the Financial Aid Success Lab available, where you can drop by anytime during our available hours to receive expert support with your financial aid application. And we will have presentations via Zoom. So you can, if you have questions that you'd like addressed on any of these presentations, you can join us via Zoom and we can answer those questions for you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to take down our contact information, visit us in person, call us, or receive virtual assistance for any questions that you may have. Thank you. You have a great day.